On today's episode, we have Ethereal and Chaos Bloom, and they are the creative genius behind Frankenhooker. And Frank's
Oh,
coming show that will be in Tacoma this June. This actually started from Chaos's MFA thesis. And on today's episode, we're going to go into the creation of it, what it was like getting it on stage, and a lot more as we learn about them. Thank you so much, and welcome to the show, Ethereal.
thank you, and it is for, Ethereal's MFA.
Oh, Ethereal. Okay.
Yes.
I am so sorry.
No, it's okay.
But I do want to talk a little bit more about your MFA thesis, Ethereal, as we get into it. But first, what I want to talk to you both about is a segment that we call What's Your Word? And so all that is what word would each of you describe as summing up your artistic process right now in this moment?
Say my word would be collaborative. While I mostly wrote the dialogue for this show, we still bounce ideas off each other. We did write the script together. We wrote the music and melody together along with 2 different composers, Anthony DeLuzak and Analia Lentini from Argentina. And our whole cast really has input on the show with helping us with scene and prop building and giving their input on making creative choices. So it's a team effort like any good show is.
Nice. Awesome.
And I would say for myself, my creative process and our creative process is very handmade. A lot of the props that we make are made with cardboard, made with, paint, tape, hot glue, very handmade. I like to paint with my fingers. I have plenty of pens and pencils and paintbrushes, but I've really found recently that painting with my hands has given me a lot more freedom and a lot more like freedom of expression there. And I love that all of our props, all of our costuming, all of our, our script, it's very handmade. We don't use any kind of AI or a lot of like technology for our stuff. It's very like getting your fingies in there.
I'll be honest, like the creation, Frankenhooker, it feels very Frankenstein-esque, in that you're bringing so
Hmm.
many different materials together and you're doing it in kind of a DIY way. While, Dr. Frankenstein did use technology and science, it is still very much a process and you still very much are, a student of your field. So I want to start talking about that. Like, why Frankenstein?
Yeah, so we saw Frankenhooker in theaters a couple years ago, for Friday Night Frights in Tacoma, and the moment we left the theater, I was telling Chaos here that I can see a musical so clearly in my head from this. And then as time went on and I was enrolled in my MFA in arts leadership, I started conducting materials for my thesis on the connection between the horror genre and the queer community and kind of that othering and not feeling at home in your body and marginalization by society of both the horror genre and the queer community, particularly how the queer community connects to media like the Rocky Horror Picture Show and other horror musicals. And then that led me to the study of the horror musical. So for my final thesis, I thought what better way to explain that than create one. So that is why we chose Frankenhooker. The movie itself is feminist of its time for 1990, but we took it and in its second act just elevate it even further to be more queer, more feminist. Whereas Jeffrey Franken is the main character followed throughout the movie, ours takes that turn to follow Elizabeth Frankenhooker from her perspective a bit more than the film does.
Nice. And I'm gonna ask, just as someone who has not yet had a chance to like see Frankenhooker, but has seen a couple iterations of Frankenstein. What is, is there any overlap between the two?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, it's definitely one of many, many pieces of media, past, present, and future, to be inspired by Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. She is a founding member of horror and the science fiction genre as we know it today.
Hmm.
It's surprisingly deep for a movie called Frankenhooker. It doesn't, it has the camp that you would expect in from a movie with that title, but it basically explores the themes of grief. The very opening scene, so this is not a spoiler, in both the film and our musical, is Jeffrey Franken's girlfriend Elizabeth dying at a machine of his own creation. She gets run over by a motorized lawnmower at her father's birthday party. And that sets the whole plot into motion of the desperation of wanting someone back so much that you'll do anything to get them back, including reanimation. But in her recreation, he gets more interested in her perfection, her aesthetic perfection, than he does having the original Elizabeth back. And that is where sourcing for parts comes into play and how you end up with Frankenhooker.
Cool. Okay. I can already see so many things at play. I don't want to ask too much because I don't want to give anything away, but we're taking it from the perspective of Frankenhooker.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure I'm getting it correct. Frankenhooker, is that the creature or the person putting it together?
One of my favorite things that we did when we wrote up our little like press release for this is I came up with the phrase who's the real Franken and who's the real hooker. So Frankenhooker technically is the monster, right? She is the one that is being created. She's literally called Frankenhooker because she is a Frankenstein made out of the parts of sex workers. So that is why it is the title, that is who she is. But in the end, to give, I guess, a little tiny spoiler, is that all of the leftover parts get used that to enact revenge against Jeffrey.
How, we will not say, and what
Yes.
is the fate of the monster, we will also not say. But yes, it explores female body autonomy and
Hmm.
explores the legitimacy and safety of sex work, and it explores grief.
Very cool. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask about is, it's the creature, or sorry, Frankenhooker is being put together by other sex workers, and just within our own society, there have been cases where we find that sex workers are killed, oftentimes
Mhm.
by serial killers, or just
Mhm.
people they're meeting up with because they see them as disposable.
Yeah, absolutely. In the original film that came out in 1990 and was produced even earlier, the sex workers in that film don't have a personality. They're just kind of shells. We meet them knowing that they will be parts, and we don't know anything about them beyond that. They're seen as kind of vapid, drug hungry, that typical cliche. So we took the deviation for the audience to really get to connect and know each woman that is the sum of the monster's parts first, and give them that backstory that we feel like they deserve, um, from, being a person. A lot of people, you are correct, don't view sex workers as people. It is a person's right of a bodily autonomy to be able to choose that as a path, and if you choose that as a path, you deserve safety.
One of my favorite things is that our song introducing all of our hookers, all of our sex workers, is it's kind of Chicago-esque, like Cell Block Tango, where you are being introduced to each of these women, each of these people, and like a little tidbit about how they feel about the line of work that they're in and what they're into. Like we have Amber, who is also a college student and sees this as like extra credit in the field for her gender studies degree.
Yeah.
We have Violet, who is a kind of closeted lesbian, like being in sex work, just having to pay the damn bills, got to do what needs to be done, and is like, let's just lay back and think of London. We have Lavender, who is wants to be on stage, wants to be on Broadway, has a child, and got divorced by her wife whenever she started transitioning. Like we give this little moment for you to meet each of the characters in that song Across the River, meeting each of our hookers. And then in the second half of the show, we explore that even deeper
Mm.
for Frankenhooker to she's not just a monster. Like she starts off as a monster who is, going on a rampage across town, only remembers the things of like, want a date, looking for some action, want money, got company, and then throughout the rest of the show, she goes more into her head, like is able to learn how to talk, become a person, very Poor Things esque.
Yes, we were very inspired by I don't know if you've seen the film Poor Things. Basically a woman's journey of self-discovery through sex work. It's also a Frankenstein-esque movie where she is the creation of a mad scientist. I guess we could kinda say this is a Frankenhooker slash Poor Things musical.
Right.
And we wanted
Love
to
it.
make sure when talking about the every different hooker's personality that we weren't painting them as a monolith. I do feel like, going back to the original film, it is painted that way. There's not much differentiating one from the other outside of physical appearance. They all have the same one-tone personality of being drug hungry and vapid, and we wanted each woman and each character to feel distinct from the other. We gotta want get people to actually see the show.
I mean, I feel like it's so exciting about Act 2 because yeah, we're not going into like too much detail about each scene that happens in Act 2,
I
but
still
I
want the
think
ending to be mysterious.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. I really love how we, in Act 1, it's a lot more song heavy. So we have more songs in Act 1. In Act 2, it's a bit more dialogue heavy with less songs. And I like that because it allows Frankenhooker to explore more of herself and her past and like each of these parts that she's made out of.
Mhm. We bridge, I feel like, her
Oh, sick.
journey of self-discovery more.
Great. So last we left off, we were talking about the music and the depth that you gave to the sex workers.
Mhm.
And so I want to go a little bit into arriving to the realization that there need to be more depth for the sex workers. And I also kind of want to ask, just from a academic standpoint, how did you go about doing this for an MFA? Like, how was it received? Because I know some institutions can be a little cagey when it comes to sex works or things that are a little bit more edgy.
Yeah. Well, we are still in that process. I actually
Okay,
graduate this June. My MFA presentation will actually be before the musical debuts, and my thesis will be due before the musical debuts. I'm really looking at for my MFA the perspective of kind of the making of, and kind of as I mentioned before, really examining the relationship between the queer community and the horror musical. This goes back to Gothic horror and Gothic poetry. This goes back to Rocky Horror Picture Show, and the connection between camp horror and the queer community and all the overlap that is there. So that is the angle I'll more be examining for my master's thesis. Being in art school, well, not necessarily art school, but being in the School of Arts and Sciences and getting an MFA, there's a lot more liberty there. One of my classmates is doing a DJ set for their thesis, for example. And there's a lot of freedom to be explored, what it means to be an art leader, what it means to connect the community to the arts, what it means for art to be political. I'm definitely pushing the edge of my thesis, so I might not get an A, but I'll be remembered, which is honestly more important to me. We'll see. But I plan to use profanity in my thesis. I plan to have audio tracks that can be examined for my thesis. I'm planning on using part of our script, and it's not really going to be a paper so much as a journey. And we'll see how it's received, I guess TBD, but I have talked to both my academic advisor and my professors about this project, and they're all really on board.
that's good.
So, I am fortunate there. It is a very queer forward campus. It's one of the reasons I chose to study at Seattle U, and many of the academic staff assisting me are also queer themselves and fans of the genre. My academic advisors and the professor kinda overseeing my final thesis, is a composer himself and has written musicals himself. So, super on board.
Cool. That's awesome to hear, especially because within academia, there isn't. I wish there was more queer representation. I wish there was more support for queer scholars and then also BIPOC scholars.
Mhm.
I will say, from my experience and what I've seen, there hasn't always been that, uh, and it really does make a difference.
It
Mhm.
does, absolutely.
I think a part of this is also for me exploring what is academia. Can an academia be a story? Can it be a music track? Like, and I think my classmates are exploring that too. can it be a playbill is what one of my other colleagues at school is examining. Kind of challenging that academia doesn't have to be heady and it should have a minority representation within academia and it should be accessible.
And then I also like the fact that you have something physical and tangible to show. Once you're done with the degree, like you have a whole show in production.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like I feel like there's always an academic who's looking to, hey, this is what's going on in my life. This is what I'm working on. Please read my dissertation. And it's like, actually, come to my dissertation. You're gonna not want to miss out on it.
Yeah,
yeah,
I know something that Ethereal has said a lot about this when like making her whole thesis and, having to go to school every week in this last like quarter before she graduates, where it was like everyone else is going to be writing a paper, doing a survey. And if I were to do that, it's just going to live on my computer. Like
mm,
I'm
close my laptop and never look at it again.
Exactly. I'm gonna write it out and there it is and it's done. Where this musical, it is going to live on in all of our actors. Like they are singing our songs at home, not just to memorize it, but like they're getting stuck in their heads. Like people, we're gonna have like multiple audiences that are going to see this and be thinking about it like possibly months or years from now. We can eventually like when we get to a point in the script and with the songs that's really clear and, buffed out and everything, that we can maybe eventually sell the rights to our script and everything and get money from that. See Frankenhooker, a new wave musical on Broadway or off Broadway or
We're big
something.
dreamers.
We got plans.
Yeah, and you should absolutely do that and have big dreams, because quite honestly, I'd love to see Frankenhooker on Broadway. But you also mentioned like it has some ties into like kind of the Rocky Horror, like that was part of your inspiration behind it. And so Rocky Horror is doing its thing on Broadway right now. So there's space. Also, as they say in academia, it's all about adding to like the academic landscape and just kind of broadening that horizon. And so it's there, it's just broadening it a little bit. So what I want to bring it back to is for the creatives out there who have a screenplay that they want to get on stage. What was that process like for you? What's your advice for them?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
Mhm.
Like, we at least have now quite a bit of experience with producing shows. Like, Frankenhooker is not our first production that we've done. We have been doing shadow casts like for the last 3 years. So we have a shadow cast of Beetlejuice, a shadow cast of Little Shop of Horrors. We've both been on a shadow cast for Rocky Horror Picture Show. We do variety show productions. Like we had a show called The Big Burlesque, which was a burlesque take variety show on The Big Lebowski. We had a show called Spirited Sachet, which was exploring Studio Ghibli movies and everything through burlesque and circus arts. We have immersive circus shows like Labyrinth of
Mhm.
Adventure, Rocky Horror Circus Show, Sailor Doom, where we are taking these already existing pieces of media and then, you know, the through line with all of our productions is we are taking a fandom or we are taking an existing piece of media and pretty much putting it into our own words. Like we are taking it and taking the scenes and saying, okay, how can we make this accessible for our performers who, for the majority, are all beginners, have either only done very, very small amount of acting or performing of any kind when they were younger, maybe a tiny bit as an adult, or have never set foot on stage before in their lives. So making sure that our shows are able to have a kind of low point of entry. Like if you are interested and you want to be in it and you're committed to coming to rehearsals, then I don't really care where you're starting from on your skill or experience level. We can get you there, but we are making it accessible to that point. So we already have experience with working with newcomers, talking to venues about like where this is going to be held, how this is going to be held, how long we need, like how many rehearsals we need to make a finished product. And I know we were worried, like, oh my goodness, we have 4 months. This is the most amount of time that we have given ourselves to have rehearsals for production. We're like, starting in January with casting, doing rehearsals beginning of February, and then the show isn't until June. Like, that's a lot of time, but it also doesn't feel like it. Like, at any moment, it could be like, we're falling behind on this, things aren't getting done. We have 3 other projects in the works at the same time that we're focusing on this. And I don't know, it's kind of nice because we're pretty much like throwing ourselves into the fire and being like, we gotta get through it. And like, we can't put out the flames. Like, we just gotta live in the fire for a while to make this into something that can be beautiful. And it's very stressful, but I think our experience with doing these productions already has helped a lot. I think any advice that we could give would be just do it. Just like reach out to people that know better than you that already have the experience. We know a couple different producers in the burlesque community that we've talked to
Mhm.
about stuff. Any shows that we've been in before, it's just making that connection with the people that are in charge. Like us talking to Mama Sue at the Blue Mouse and being like, this is what we want to do. This is how we can do it. Are you down for that? And then honestly, like we're building our wings as we go.
Love
Yeah,
it.
the best way to do is just to do it, and it's as simple and as complicated as that. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to resource farm. People are always free to reach out to us if they're interested in producing. I love collaborating with other producers and sharing what I've learned and my mistakes and things like that with them.
And then what I wanted to ask, I didn't ask this earlier, but is there a burlesque element to Frankenhooker?
Not in the traditional sense as a lot of our shows tend to be. As Kayus was saying, our shows tend to follow a narrative path, but we do have some that are a little more variety style, just with a narrative through line that are based around circus or burlesque acts. I guess it does in the sense that when depicting a club with sex workers, there's choreography heavily inspired by burlesque choreography. But this is more unique from our other burlesque projects in that it
Mhm.
is a very much a stage musical.
It's exciting. Okay, cool. So this is also like an evolution and a change for you all and what you've been doing.
Yes.
Um, nice. So where can everyone come and see that? That was so perfect.
Make it work.
So where can everyone come and see Frankenhooker this coming June?
So excited. We have 2 showings. One is June 18th at the Blue Mouse Theater in Tacoma, and that is our very first showing, so
Mhm.
excited. And then the other one is June 26th at Theater Puget Sound at the Center Theater within Theater Puget Sound in Seattle.
So you're covering both cities. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
in Seattle.
Nice.
June 18th, Tacoma, June 26th, Seattle.
Very cool. So then I will definitely be coming by to see that because I definitely want to get a feel for Frankenhooker and see it as a musical.
Hell yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. That's such a fun first exposure to it too. I'm all team going blind. If you haven't seen the film yet, I think the musical is, the way it starts off faithful, then deviates. I think it's a great way to
Mhm.
get Franken and Lauder baptized.
My final question that I ask everyone who is a guest on the podcast is what song sums up your creative experience right now?
Oh, that's so difficult because our music definitely takes inspiration from 80s new wave. That's why it's Frankenhooker, a new wave musical. It's my favorite genre of music. Depeche Mode, The Cure, David Bowie, etc. But for one song, to really narrow it down to one song, um, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, the first one that came to mind in almost like a very ironic way is Too Much Time by Styx. Like it's like not true at all because like the song is like too much time on my hands, like got nowhere to do, did it, and it's like we have no time on our hands like at all. It's like we constantly have so many different projects that we could be working on. It's the thing that always gets us like most complicated with each
Yeah.
other of like,
We like to sing that song ironically, like
yeah.
when we're drowning in responsibility.
Well, one thing that I do love is that we're always like, you know what? We do have time to cuddle. We always have time to dance with each other. We always have time to give each other like a kiss, give each other a little bit of affection. Like, we don't want any part of our creative process to bog down our love and
Yeah.
affection for each
They
other.
always warn you about going into business with your partner, but it's been the greatest joy so far,
This is so
going into
sweet.
year 3 of this. Oh, year 3 of our company together.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say probably "Enjoy the Silence" by Depeche Mode. Like, bass beat, like, changed me when I first heard it as a teenager. I always say that my ultimate all-time favorite band is actually ABBA, but secondary to that, really anything new wave, but especially Depeche Mode and Bowie. I would say, like, "Life on Mars" is, like, my life anthem, but not really so much for Frankenhooker. For Frankenhooker, I would say "Enjoy the Silence." Kind of in that same irony of too much time. We don't really have silence to enjoy, but all I need is truly right here, both in my partner and in our community with ethereal chaos. Sometimes you really just gotta take that beat where you can take that beat. So yeah, I would say that would be my song.
That is the cutest thing ever. I love it so much. Because one, yes, like when you get to work with your partner and pull it off, that's the goal as a creative. But then also in the academia sense, it's like you do need time to like rest, and that does not
Mhm.
happen often. And when
Mhm.
you combine the two, as you both have, wow, the fact that you find rest and time to cuddle and like time to center each other is amazing. So, Ethereal Chaos, I want to thank you both so much for being guests on today's show. I cannot wait to see Frankenhooker this June, and I will be posting in the show notes for those of you who are interested the website link, where to find them, and then also reminders for their show coming up in June.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you
Castle,
so
for
much.
having